Aita for kicking my BL out of my house for the things he said about me, using a throwaway my boyfriend made a while ago since I don't use Reddit. 26F, and my boyfriend, 28M, threw a housewarming party last night since we just got our dream home after he got a massive promotion. I am currently 5 months pregnant with our first child. This was not planned but was a happy surprise. We have both always wanted to be parents, so we decided to keep this baby. All of our family came over to our house and it was amazing until my BL, 22M, opened his mouth. He joked to my boyfriend that I was clearly baby trapping him since this house was way too nice for my kind, and he should have married that Insta model he dated before me so his kids could have a fighting chance. I'm Native American and from Wyoming. My boyfriend and his family are Midwestern white. Without dining clearly, I said, talk about projecting. Your girlfriend is married single mother. If anything, you're the baby trapper. You don't even know your son's birthday. She didn't even want kids at first, but y'all argued about kids and suddenly she's pregnant a month later. His girlfriend, 21F, was also at the party. My boyfriend then kicked him out of our house after he had a fit over my comment and told him to never speak about his family ever again. His family, mostly his mother, is now blowing up my phone. She has sent me like 10 text messages and a couple voice notes, blaming me for my BL's girlfriend finally breaking up with him and that I sound like a jealous baby mama. Was I in the wrong for calling him a baby trapper and kicking him out? Did I overreact? I feel I could have handled that better, but I'd rather have unbiased opinions of strangers from Reddit. So sorry if this is kinda all over the place. Baby is making me have the worst headaches and am typing this on my lunch break. Edit to add, I did apologize to Maya Sayel that night that it happened. She is now staying with me with her son until her mom is able to have a baby in her home. Edit 2, my boyfriend defended me before my trapping comment. He's not a shitty boyfriend. I just didn't write that as it didn't feel important to my actions which I was asking about. He's always defended me even from the smallest things. Stories number 2. Aita for telling my 13-year-old sister off and continuing to drive her ex-friend as part of the carpool. I, 18F, am a carpool driver because of my sister Maya, 13F, and brother Joey, 8M. The carpool also includes Jenny, 13F, all fake names, who Maya used to be friends with, but the friendship ended after an argument over a group outfit. Since that happened, Maya is saying that she wants Jenny out of the carpool. Her explanation was that being around her ex-friend is giving her anxiety since she knows Jenny doesn't like her anymore. I asked, has Jenny been saying or doing anything to you? Maya said no, but she shouldn't have to sit next to someone who doesn't like her every day. I need to back her up and stop driving Jenny in the carpool because I'm her sister and not Jenny's. I explained that Jenny's mom obviously won't participate in the carpool if Jenny isn't allowed, which means Maya and Joey won't have an affordable way to school on Mondays and Fridays anymore. I also told Maya that she can listen to her music or talk to our brother on the ride as a distraction. Maya kept arguing though and I was out of patience. So I told Maya that the fact is that not everybody's gonna like you and broken friendships are going to happen in life. She needs to get over it and I better not hear about her trying to start any issues with Jenny or her mom over this. I'm conflicted because of my parents. Dad feels bad because broken friendships at that age are still painful, and he said I was mean for not offering to work out something. But Mom is out of patience as well because they're already seated at opposite windows and Jenny isn't saying or doing anything. She said she approved of what I told Maya because she's not going to mess up the carpool and let them pay a ridiculous fee every semester just because she's uncomfortable. Is Dad still right that Aita and should have tried to work something out with Maya? Stories number 3. Aita for asking my coworker to label his food after he kept eating mine, and accidentally making him sick. I, 29F, work in an office where we have a shared kitchen, and I bring my lunch from home every day. For the past few months, I noticed my food would randomly go missing. At first, I thought maybe I forgot to pack it or left it at home, but eventually, I realized someone was eating it. After a little observation, I started to suspect one coworker, let's call him D, mid-30s. He's always in the kitchen around the time my lunch disappears, and I've seen him casually snack on things that don't look like something he'd bring. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I brought it up generally in the office. I said something like, hey, someone's been eating my lunch. Can we please be respectful and not take other people's food? Everyone just nodded along, but D didn't say a word. Despite this, my food kept disappearing. I tried labeling it with my name and even hid it in the back of the fridge, it still went missing. I was beyond frustrated. This week, I decided to bring in something I knew D wouldn't like. I made a spicy pasta dish with extra chili. I love spicy food, but I know it's not for everyone. I also labeled it clearly with very spicy, so there would be no confusion. Well, guess what? My lunch disappeared again. A few hours later, D started complaining about his stomach and how he wasn't feeling well. He had to leave work early. Later, I found out from another coworker that D admitted he took my lunch, thinking I was exaggerating about how spicy it was. Now, a few coworkers are saying I went too far by bringing in something intentionally dangerous. But I never forced anyone to take my food. He knew it wasn't his and took it anyway. I feel bad that he got sick, but honestly, he shouldn't have been stealing my lunch in the first place. So, Reddit, Aita for asking D to label his food after repeatedly stealing mine and for bringing in a spicy dish that made him sick. Stories number 4. Aita for saying no to my grandpa's wife when she asked me to set an example for my younger siblings and cousins and start calling her grandma. My mom and uncle don't like my grandpa's wife. Not sure if they ever liked her. But when they had kids they always used her name and they told us she wasn't really their mom or our grandma, she was just married to grandpa and that grandma was the only grandma we had from their side. So we all called grandpa's wife by her first name and none of us have seen much of her. We see grandpa a little more but we don't see him a whole lot either. Grandma is the grandparents we had in our lives the most. She was amazing too. We did see grandpa and his wife some more in December because he was turning 70 and he wanted to see us all for Christmas. When I was there his wife wanted me to help her and she wanted us to spend time together. She asked me to call her grandma a bunch of times but I kept using her name and when she said it bothered her I asked her if she'd prefer me to use something more formal. She said no, she wanted me to call her grandma or Grammy or something. I told her I wasn't going to start calling her that. On Christmas Day she mentioned it again when she found me alone. She told me she wants me to set an example of my siblings and cousins, who are all younger, and call her grandma so they'll do it too. I told her no and said I needed to get back to where everyone was. She whispered in my ear that I should help my elders and should know you can't say no to an adult like that. I told my mom what happened. She told my uncle and the two of them confronted grandpa's wife in the new year, and then grandpa's wife messaged me on Instagram and told me I had some nerve saying no to her face and then telling my mom on her. She said I was almost an adult and should be able to handle this maturely and respectfully. She also said I shouldn't let my mom influence who is and isn't my grandparent or family. Aita. Stories number 5. I hate how our lives revolve around jobs so much. As the title states, I hate the workplace culture. I feel oppressed as fuck and I know people have had it worse, but I don't think I'm cut out for this shit. I can't work 40 hours a week and have my entire life based around some asshole's ideology and vision. I feel like I'm not myself and like I'm just a fucking robot. What exactly does it even mean to be professional when management thinks it's okay to talk shit about their employees or to speak condescendingly towards them? Welcome to the real world, smiley face. Well, is it really? I don't even have other solutions, but if this is what we all have to look forward to then I'm good. I'm tired of trying so hard only to have my efforts thrown back in my face. And I'm tired of hearing advice about how I should work harder, suck it up, and be better. This isn't the kind of life I want to live. Stories number 6. Aita for attempting to cut my mom off from me after she said my essay was my fault. I, 18M, a few years back got essayed at my mom's friend's party. And it isn't an experience I will explain, but the main point is my mom the next day made me tell her everything that happened and demanded me to tell her what happened, which fucked me up a lot. After a few months later, we would get into an argument for reasons I can't even remember but in this argument my essay came up and I was angry that nothing had been done to the guy, and after several minutes of arguing, my mom says, to be fair, you put yourself in that situation, which pretty much was her saying it's my fault I had that happen. She's gone on to say this 3 times further and it is clear to me now that she doesn't believe she's in the wrong. During another argument I brought this up to her and she tried to say she was trying to teach me how to pick up on a situation like that, which made me madder even more because she's always trying to teach me everything like I'm 10 and now she's trying to turn my trauma into a lesson of life rather than validate my emotions and comfort me. As of late I've been snippy towards her and overall just annoyed when she's in my presence because she acts like nothing happened. She works at the school I go to and all the kids love her there and it pisses me off because she has the gall to be all nice to everyone but when it comes to me it's like she doesn't give a shit. I've told her that she's scarred me forever by saying the shit she said and she just walks away in the arguments because she doesn't want to deal with it. I don't love her anymore and every time I'm around her I feel my day getting significantly shittier by the second while being in her presence. Is what I'm doing justified? Edit. This happened when I was 16 and the dude was very intoxicated, not to mention he was also fucking 30 and in a relationship with his boyfriend who happened to be at this event. I apologize for not including that context. After looking at the comments I felt I should clarify to let others know. Edit 2. A lot of you have said to get therapy and seek the guidance office for support. I've been going to therapy for suicide prevention since 2017 so it's also a key factor in her also being a helicopter around me. I have a girlfriend I have yet to spend more than one night with at their place because my mom is on top of me so often. The guidance office knows of my situation and haven't done anything to change her standing or anything else. I also feel it might be too late to have anything done as I was out of state at the friend's party, whom I've known since I was very little and she was getting married. I don't put any blame on her, and when I told her, she took the dude off the guest list for the wedding, which is more than what my mom ever did for me. I'll update people further in the comments or make an update if more questions arise. Thank you all so much for your love and support, it means the absolute world to me as a man. Stories number 7. Aita Mil told my husband Aya in front of me that he could always stay with her if his illness gets worse. I'm still reeling from this, so this will probably be more emotional than intended. I have been married to James for 10 years, we have been together for 13 years. The thing is, our marriage has always been good. We are happy together, we've never had any huge fights, no cheating or anything like that. I have also always gotten along well with my mother-in-law, Patty. We hit it off quickly, we are similar in many ways, so it was easy, and she has always shown me love and acceptance. When my own mom passed away, she was right there with me and my dad taking care of things. James, husband, was just recently diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS. We are still working out details of what this is going to look like long term. He sat down and talked with his side of the family about it just this past weekend. And my mother-in-law was of course upset to hear about this, but she said something shocking. She said, with me right next to my husband, well, if things get worse and Gigi leaves you, you can always come home to me. James and I were both shocked that she said this. I was speechless, and he put his hand on my knee and said, I don't think we have to worry about that, Mom, Gigi isn't going anywhere. She looked at me and smiled politely and said, well, just putting it out there. I did my best to not make anything about me in that moment, smiled back, held my husband's hand, and internally stewed. Hours later, I approached her and asked her why she would ever say something like that about me. She told me that it was nothing personal, it's just something any mother would say about her son. She says that we can never see into the future. I told her that I was sitting right there, and if she felt she absolutely had to say something, she should have waited until I was gone. She just smiled and said I'd get it one day. I haven't really talked to her since then, and we usually meet up a few times a week to walk together, run errands, etc. Aita for reacting the way I am. I am just hurt and feel like space is a good thing. For the record, my husband said he thinks she was just trying to say something, anything, to fill the silence, and that he knows my character well enough to know that wouldn't happen. Stories number 8. Aita for calling out my professor for making inappropriate comments about my body in class. So this happened recently, and I'm really torn about whether or not I did the right thing. I, 20F, am in my second year of college, and I've had this professor, mid 40 SM, for 2 classes now. I've always found him to be a bit odd, but I just figured he was one of those quirky teachers. That was until things started getting weird. At first, it was the usual stuff like calling me out for how nice I looked on certain days and making comments about how I should be a model, which, let's be real, no one asks for unsolicited compliments about their appearance in class. It made me uncomfortable, but I figured I could just brush it off and move on, especially since he was a well-respected professor. But then it got worse. In a recent class, he made a comment in front of the whole class that I should be careful in the future because my body type would lead to people looking at me the wrong way, and that maybe I should dress more conservatively. This was said in response to me wearing a dress that I thought was appropriate for class, nothing too revealing or out of the ordinary. It was just a dress that I felt confident in. I was completely stunned and embarrassed, and the whole class just went quiet. I didn't know what to say in the moment, but after class, I spoke to a few of my classmates who said they'd noticed his comments before. They encouraged me to report him, and honestly, it felt like the right thing to do. So I did. I filed a complaint with the department head and explained everything. Now, the professor is being investigated, and I feel bad. I'm torn between knowing that what he did was wrong and feeling like I might have ruined his career. I know I should be standing up for myself, but at the same time, I didn't want to be the cause of him losing his job. Aita for reporting him. Should I have just let it go and hoped it wouldn't happen again? Stories number 9. Aita for telling my dad's wife that both my parents are toxic and I don't need her to act so outraged about me not getting to know her. My parents are 2 of the most toxic people ever and their relationship was a hellish experience for me growing up. I'm 20M, their only kid, that we know of. My dad could have more. I know my parents cheated on each other. Honestly, I know more about my parents' sex lives, their romantic relationships with others and each other than any kid wants to know. They were loud during fights and didn't hold back even when I was home. For years we lived in a tiny 1-bed apartment and the walls were thin. There was nothing to keep me from the info. I was 15 when my parents decided to divorce for real. They did get back together twice during and after the divorce, but they were done after that and I was so relieved. It had not been fun living with the two of them, and for the most part one had spent time with friends once I hit my teens, and I had a lot of sleepovers to try and stay away from their issues. The stuff my parents said or did when I was near them were things like screaming at each other, calling each other names, all but having sex in the living room of our apartment, talking about and throwing their affairs in each other's faces and giving away some very private details of their sex life. Like stuff each liked having done. Sometimes I was in the same room as them and they'd just be so into each other or against each other that they didn't care. My dad met his wife when I was 17. I technically jumped between both parents after their final breakup, but unofficially I was living at a friend's house and spent most of my time and most nights there. There were times one parent insisted I stay with them for something. My dad bringing his wife home to meet me, before they were married, was one of them. She was very excited to meet me and tried to bond with me from the jump. I didn't put the effort in and I left for my friend's house as soon as I could. I didn't go to their wedding a year later. I didn't send a gift or anything or really give a valid reason I wasn't going. By the time he was getting married I was fully moved out from both parents and very low contact with them. My dad tried to make us a family and reached out a lot and wanted me to spend more time with them. Every other text was him calling my mom a disgusting whore or other things. Because him reaching out wasn't him suddenly growing up and doing better. I didn't go home for Christmas or summers since I started college, and being away from the toxic people of my childhood was far healthier. My dad's wife doesn't like it though. She reached out to me a few times for a while, but then around October she turned 50 and I was invited to celebrate her birthday but didn't show. I did RSVP no. She got pissed about it and sent me a bunch of texts and DMs about how rude it is that I'm not even trying to get to know her and how we're a family and I should be glad my dad got away from my mom and we could be a healthy family. She told me she did nothing to deserve me not giving us a chance, and that I owe my dad way more than that for putting up with mom. She blamed the issues of the past on my mom and said dad was in a bad spot. I sent her screenshots of texts dad had sent me insulting my mom and I told her that was my childhood from both of them. Both are equally toxic. Neither deserves anything from me. And that I don't need her to act all offended about me not getting to know her when we are no more family than my parents and I ever really were. Aita. Stories number 10. Finding descendants of the man who inscribed the WW1 watch I bought. Just purchased my first WW1 trench watch. Got lucky finding one which is inscribed, and in all likelihood I even found the person who it belongs to. Inscribed is RFA 58 Bat 35th Brig G. Burke. At the back on the mechanism side there seems to be inscribed WHLWHLOT. What this means I am not sure. On the last picture to the right, I assume, because of the arrow, is George Burke, who was in 1916 posted with the Royal Field Artillery, RFA, 7th Division, 58 Battery, 35 Brigade. On November 21, 1917 he was sent to Italy. On June 15, 1918 his brigade supported the 23rd Division at Asiago, where he was shot, gassed and taken prisoner. He was sent to a hospital and the Terezin POW camp in what is now Czechia. He survived the war and passed away in 1979 at the very respectable age of 88. The watch is in a pretty good state, especially considering it was used. It's missing the glass at the front and the crown to control the mechanism. I would love to restore it, but obviously preferably with original parts. If anyone happens to know more or wants to share their opinion I would love to hear it. I included 4 pics of the watch. Hello. I bought a WW1 watch which has been inscribed in a makeshift way. Inscribed is RFA 35 Brig 58 Bat G. Burke. I have found a George Burke who was in the Royal Field Artillery, RFA, 7th Division, 58th Battery, 35th Brigade. Since I could find no others and it being an exact match plus his story making it logical the watch ended up in mainland Europe, I would assume the chances are very high this was his. He was taken prisoner and I think possibly there is where this watch split ways with him, even though he luckily survived the war and lived for a long while after. Does anyone have any advice on how I could find out and possibly return the watch to a living descendant? Thanks. Relevant comments. Commenters 1. First, this entire memorial on the Lives of the First World War website has been lovingly curated by some guy named Steven. Steven only contributed to this single page on the site, and contributed photos titled Uncle George. He is probably a descendant, and interested in his family history, so it seems like he might be your guy. Unfortunately, there does not seem to be any way to contact Steven through the site. However, given that Steven is a huge genealogy nerd, I say affectionately, as a genealogy nerd, he probably has an Ancestry account. One quick search of Steven Burke on Ancestry turns up this guy. Great news. He has a public tree. The Burke-Tro triplet Lear family tree shows him as a direct descendant of George Burke. Shoot him a message on Ancestry. Reply. Wildly impressive. I sent him a message right away, thanks a lot. Commenters 2. Firstly, huge genealogy nerd is about right for me. Secondly, this is extraordinary. The nearest I've come to this is when someone put up a photo of 3 siblings of my grandmother Margaret Burke, née Tro, on a Welsh Facebook site and asked if anyone knew the Tro family. She'd bought a job lot of old photos. I suspect George traded the watch for provisions in the POW camp. He said conditions there were really rough. The photo with the caption Uncle George came from one of my dad's Burke cousins in Canada. Commenters 3. Someone has just contacted me via Ancestry. This is amazing. George Burke was my grandfather. He was in 35 Brigade 58 Battery Royal Field Artillery and served in France, Belgium and finally Italy, where he was wounded and taken prisoner on the Asiago Plateau. He ended up in an Austrian POW camp. As you have seen, I even have a photo of him in an Austrian POW hospital. After the war, George married Margaret Tro, who was from the Bala area in North Wales. They had 4 children: Frank, Joan, George and my dad Ronald. I have George's medals, postcards from when he was in the army, army insignia, and his complete army records. My dad, who is almost 90, will be stunned by this. Stephen. Reply. Hello Stephen. It's incredible the people here have found you. I have sent you a message on Ancestry. Let's get this watch back to you and your family. Commenters 4. I've just spoken to my dad, George's son. He's amazed and delighted. The first thing he said was that George put his name on everything. Commenters 5. What an amazing story. Read through the comments and see that his grandson or great-grandson replied as well. I am blown away. Wow. Commenters 6. I'm George's grandson. I've been researching his World War I service for 17 years now, and in 2008 went to the field on the Asiago Plateau in Italy where he was injured and taken prisoner. I never thought I'd be contacted out of the blue to be told his watch had turned up. Commenters 7. What an amazing story. Read through the comments and see that his grandson or great-grandson replied as well. I am blown away. Wow. Commenters 8. It's on another level, it's so extraordinary. I inherited thousands of items from George and his daughter, my aunt, Joan, photos, negatives, pictures, medals, letters, souvenirs and such like. Amongst these items are things that can only have come from the POW camp in 1918, some banknotes for example that could only be used in a POW camp, also some postcards from the camp. One item is particularly interesting. It's a World War I Austrian military medal. Did George do a swap, his watch for the medal? Update. The watch is now with my sister in Brittany. I will be seeing her on Monday as we're going over for Christmas. My family is absolutely delighted by this. A huge thank you to SWSTL for all his efforts and for the magnificent gesture of returning the watch to us. Also a huge thank you to those on this forum who went out of their way to track me down. I keep saying to my dad, George Burke's son, that doing a family tree is a bit like fishing. You cast a bait out not knowing whether or not you'll catch something, and if you catch something what it will be. This has been just such an example. Little did I know that when I write a brief profile of George Burke on the Lives of the First World War site that years later someone would use it to track me and my family down. Many thanks to all of you. Stephen. Update. Long story short of the original post, I bought a WW1 watch from a Dutch marketplace which was inscribed with initials, a surname and regiment information. I searched for a while and ended up finding a grandson of the original owner through the post. Not only that, even his son is still alive. Burke 63 and I discussed, after I got to read different amazing stories, documents and pictures from his grandfather, what would be the best way to get the watch to him and his family. Him living in England and me in the Netherlands, sending the watch by post directly was too risky. Luckily Stephen has a sister in France which he was visiting during Christmas, so we decided sending it to her was more practical than driving all the way to me and safer than sending it across the ocean to a non-EU country, extra customs and such. After watching the tracking info closely, the watch arrived safely at his sister's house before Christmas and Stephen was able to safely bring it home. I have absolutely no doubts the watch is in the right place. Stephen is very passionate about genealogy and I couldn't be more happy for him to receive this piece. Thanks to everyone who helped and commented on the original post and especially you/Stabbery for the very quick breakthrough. Stories number 11. Am I being unreasonable for not wanting to share my 21st birthday with my 12-year-old cousin? My 21st birthday is coming up, and in the past, I've usually kept it low-key. This year, though, I was looking forward to doing something for myself. I planned to celebrate with my mom and her boyfriend, since we're temporarily living in his house, and he offered to take me out to dinner. However, I found out my cousin, 12, turning 13, has his birthday on the 11th, and my mom suggested I share my celebration with him then and not the 8th. She said this in front of her boyfriend, hinting at him to pay for both of us. She and my aunt had already talked about it, and while I understand my aunt doesn't have a lot of money and wants to do something special for her son, I felt uncomfortable. I don't want to share my 21st, which feels like a bigger milestone than turning 13. That's not to say I don't care about my cousin, but I wasn't expecting this change of plans. On top of that, I don't have a close relationship with my cousin or his brother who would also be invited, and I feel awkward around them. It's hard to talk to them without thinking of our past, long complicated family history, and I don't want to invite them to my dinner just to make things uncomfortable. I'm also dealing with some tension with my mom, and I'm worried she'll think I'm being unreasonable or dramatic. I'm just torn between wanting to have my own celebration and not hurting anyone's feelings. Should I just go along with it for the sake of family, or tell my mom how I feel and risk causing tension? Maybe we can come to a sort of compromise. Any advice is appreciated. Update: am I being unreasonable for not wanting to share my 21st birthday with a 12-year-old? Following my original post, I talked privately with my mom's boyfriend, who agreed it wasn't fair for my mom to make decisions about my birthday without my input. He was also uncomfortable that he was expected to be paying for my aunt and her kids at this expensive dinner place. When I addressed this with my mom, she blew up on me. She later got mad at her boyfriend, said we don't need him and can pay for all of us without him there. She said I misunderstood and insisted the dinner was meant to celebrate me, just coincidentally on my cousin's birthday. This didn't make sense to me, as I felt it would still make my cousin uncomfortable and take away from his day. I suggested celebrating my cousin and to make the day about him, but she said that would offend my aunt and her place as a mother by trying to tell her what to do and how to celebrate him. If you were my aunt/uncle, would this be offensive? She said I was being ignorant and thinking like an American, since in our culture, sharing birthdays is supposedly an honor, and that I just don't understand. Maybe we have a culturally different mentality, as I was born in America. The conversation escalated, and she brought up unrelated issues and things from the past, compared me to my father in a hurtful way, and said I always make things complicated, similar to people with NPD. She started crying and I started to feel bad because I could tell she was hurt by what I said and genuinely thought she was trying to do something nice. I know her intentions were all good, but I wanted her to see my perspective and she just couldn't. So it ended with me canceling the dinner altogether to avoid further drama. She shouted at me to get out of her face on my birthday and didn't acknowledge it or hasn't even congratulated me since. We're both acting like nothing happened, but this honestly made me really sad. I let my aunt know last minute that we wouldn't be going out for my cousin and I's birthday because my mom's boyfriend wasn't comfortable paying. Which I felt guilty for because she had already told him. I'm not too sure if she felt upset by it. In the end, I made last-minute plans for myself on my actual birthday. I went to a museum, shopped and treated myself, then had my first legal drink. I tried to focus on enjoying my day, but I'm left wondering if I handled things wrong or if I should have approached this differently. My mom's boyfriend said the original plan was just for the three of us to go out and celebrate me, and said he's still open to doing that whenever I'd like. Should I still take him up on the offer? I'd love a nice dinner outing with them, but I'm feeling kind of awkward around my mom right now. Also, ever since my plans on my actual birthday didn't include him, I can sense he's been acting a little passive-aggressive around me as I basically declined his offer. So maybe it will help diffuse things. Any advice? Stories number 12. AIO coworker thinks she's the authority on pregnancy and babies. I'm a woman in my 30s. My coworker is pregnant and is having a baby shower soon. A group of us is going in on a gift together. One of our coworkers has a young kid. She seems to think this makes her an expert on pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood. Her kid isn't even in kindergarten yet. So, she made a comment to me indicating that I don't even know what a bassinet is or understand that usually a bassinet would be in the parents' room and not in the nursery. She also instructed all of us childless women in the room on how a baby isn't supposed to have anything else in their crib: blankets, stuffed animals, things that could suffocate them. Yeah, I've known that since I took a babysitting class at age 13. I get that some people without kids might not know that, but you don't have to be a parent to know some things about babies. It's the way she says it, like she knows all this stuff none of us know, like we'd all be bumbling idiots if we had to care for a baby for an hour. Later, she was talking about how she's going to have to give our pregnancy coworker a talk about mommy care and explain everything that will happen to her body after baby. Mind you, she doesn't even work closely with the pregnancy coworker. They're not even work friends really. She's assuming that this pregnant coworker doesn't already know what's going to happen or wants to hear her advice about what to apply to her bits to ease the pain. She says it in such a braggart way, as if she's the only one who knows this info. She said something to the effect of, "Oh, you wouldn't know, and believe me, you don't want to know. This is a private convo for me to have with pregnant coworker. I want so badly to scream I'm not clueless about pregnancy, childbirth, and babies. I experienced all of it when you were still an awkward high school freshman who had never kissed a boy. Yes, I have first-hand experience with pregnancy, childbirth, and recovery. Even if I didn't, I've been around so many babies, had close friends and family go through pregnancy, babysat many a relative's child since I was in middle school. Now I know those things are exactly the same as being pregnant or a parent yourself. But most adult women out there without kids aren't so clueless that we don't know what a bassinet is or that scary, sometimes gross things happen to your body during and after pregnancy. I have siblings more than a decade younger than me as well, and I was changing their diapers and doing a lot of care for them, not because I was forced to, but because I loved helping, when I was 10 to 12 years old. I want so badly to also scream at my coworker that I'm well aware of what a bassinet is, and I had 2 of them that never got used. I set them up myself. I get why people wouldn't automatically think about or consider this, but although I'm child-free now, it doesn't mean that I've never been pregnant or even given birth. I've experienced both of those things. I got pregnant when I was 18 and I had a baby who was stillborn at 35 weeks. I didn't go home from the hospital with a baby, but my body still experienced all of the same things afterwards. I don't talk about it or tell everyone I meet because it's often too painful for me to talk about, and I tend to cry no matter how hard I try not to. I don't feel the need to tell coworkers, and I'm not upset that they can't read my mind and know that I've gone through that. I'm just annoyed that this particular coworker talks about it in such a condescending way and doesn't realize that even people who have never been pregnant or had their own child might not be absolutely clueless about these topics. But it would be nice if people could also realize that just because a person doesn't currently have a living child, they shouldn't automatically assume that the person has never been pregnant or given birth. So I calmly told my coworker that I'm not clueless when it comes to pregnancy and babies, and that I'd bet most of the childless women we work with also are not clueless, and I'd appreciate if she'd stop talking about pregnancy, childbirth, and babies as if she's the authority on the subject. Stories number 13. I'm an idiot. Rolled my 401(k) into my new employer's plan and regretting my decision. So, as the post heading says, I am an idiot and do not know enough about personal finance. The least I could have done was a cursory search of Google or Reddit before I made this decision, but alas, here we are. I had multiple 401(k)s out there from past employers and decided it would be nice to have them all in one place. The old 401(k)s were at Principal and Fidelity, and my new company uses Empower. I spoke to someone at Empower who told me what a great idea it would be to roll everything to them, but never mentioned that I should check into asset management fees. Today I checked my retirement balance and saw that I will be getting charged about $200 a year in fees at Empower. Not crazy, but I looked at statements from my old 401(k)s and I don't see any asset management fees. Not sure how that's possible, but maybe the companies were paying them even after I left. Also, now that I've done that cursory Google search, it seems like Fidelity just has lower fees overall. Anyways, I talked to a retirement advisor at Empower today and she apologized, saying that they should have gone over that and she would have told me if I was thinking of rolling over that I should look into fees. Yeah, thanks, but too late. Wishing I could reverse the transactions, but assuming that's not possible. I do not have an IRA and I'm not sure if that's something I should look into. Maybe these fees aren't actually very high at all, but it seems like they're taking my money for no reason since it's in a target date fund. Some context: I am almost 40, high earner, target date fund 2045. Thanks in advance for your advice, and any roasting I receive because internet. Stories number 14. Aita for not letting my boyfriend's children use my snorkel set. Background: my boyfriend, M50, bought me, F45, an expensive goggle and snorkel set for the Christmas that's just passed. It was my main Christmas present from my partner. We've been together 6 years and both have teenage children from our previous marriages. I've told my partner that I do not want anyone else to use my snorkel set, A, because it's gross to share things that you literally put in your mouth and suck on, and B, it's special to me, because it was a gift from my partner and I don't want it broken or really just used by anyone else. Today at the beach my partner told his daughter, 11, that she could use my snorkel set. She has her own here at the beach, it's just not quite as good as mine. I said no, she couldn't use it. He said I'm being an arsehole, and I said he was being an arsehole because I was very clear up front about not wanting to share this one thing. I don't have any issues sharing anything else, or nothing that's arisen so far. I have a very good relationship with his daughter and she didn't care about not using my snorkel set. So, Aita. Stories number 15. My ex tattooed and scarred me. Crazy fucking story, just never really told anyone because I'm a bit ashamed. My ex bought a tattoo gun off Amazon in 2020 and basically forced me to let him tattoo me. We got drunk and when I woke up I had 2 tattoos, didn't even realize until I scratched one because it inched and it hurt like hell, so I looked. A flower on one side of my knee and a heart on the other. I was pissed but he said I begged him to do it, which I don't remember and honestly don't think I would ask for. I was very drunk though, so I just said whatever. FFW 2021, almost 2022, and I just gave birth to our kid. Obviously I wasn't drinking, and I thought he wasn't as well, but once baby was here it was obvious. He stunk, had glassy eyes all the time, even got in a workplace accident. So I have mom take my kid who's about 5 months at this point and confront him. He starts yelling, I yell back. He goes for a cigarette and I follow him to tell him to come inside and talk about a game plan because I won't be raising my son around an alcoholic. He snapped. He lunged towards me, grabbed me from behind, said it's my son too, took his cigarette and burned both my wrists. When I tried to get away, my shirt ripped and he dropped the cigarette between my breasts and burned my cleavage. I was crying. I ran back inside to call the police but he ran away before they got here because I locked him out. He has a warrant but he's been gone for 3 years and no one knows where. Everyone who knows him suspects he's in a tent somewhere drinking and probably on meth. I can't believe I went through this. I have visible scars and I can't wear shorts without someone saying something about the tattoos, where I got them, etc. It's so awful. The only silver lining is having my son and seeing how great of a kid he is despite everything. I just needed to finally get that out there. Stories number 16. Wipta for not buying a life-saving medication for my cousin. My 32M cousin Jake, 34M fake name, and I were really close growing up. Our parents were neighbors and we used to hang out and play together as kids. I thought of him as a brother from another mother and was very close since I have only sisters. He was fun to be with, but he showed concerning behaviors. He would skip school multiple times. It got so bad that he almost got kicked out for it. He also has a tendency to fabricate or exaggerate stories. I, and the rest of my extended family tried to correct his bad behavior to no avail. Years later, I moved to another country to go to college and find a job. During that time, Jake's managed to get himself into various troubles. He couldn't keep a job for too long, fathered a kid with his ex-girlfriend, and used drugs. His parents tried their best to help him through this, but they can't afford it on their own. My mom and her siblings helped out by chipping in some money. I on the other hand, got into a lucrative career in finance. 3 years ago, Jake got arrested for being a drug runner. Prior to his arrest, he posted a lot of travel photos on social media. At the time it didn't look suspicious because he looked like he was doing better. He worked as a bartender and supplemented his income by delivering packages as a side hustle. My extended family chipped in to hire a lawyer to fight the case. They are very close and helped each other out in the past, so this is not out of the ordinary. I have given money to other family members myself when they lose income due to layoffs and diseases. Since Jake's arrest, my mom and her siblings tried to financially take care of him. However, disaster struck when Jake contracted a disease 2 years ago. It was curable, but the medication was very expensive. My uncle and his siblings cannot afford to pay the full price of the meds, so they turned to me and my other cousins for help. Some of them gave money while others didn't. I contributed to the fund, but I told my uncle that I am not going to send more money for Jake after this. I told him that Jake had so many chances to improve his life but he kept getting himself into trouble. He never truly suffered the consequences of his actions and I don't want to be an enabler anymore. My uncle was disappointed but he said he understood where I'm coming from. Jake recovered from the disease, got out of jail on bail, but managed to get arrested again for a different crime. He got sick again a couple of days ago. This infection is a lot more aggressive and worse than the first. The cure for it is way more expensive. My cousins and I are once again getting dragged into this. While my uncle hasn't said anything to me directly, my mom has been trying to convince me into giving some money. She knows that I could single-handedly buy for Jake's meds without breaking a sweat. I told her that while it's true, I want to stick to my word. It was Jake's fault for going to jail again and he needs to suffer to learn from it. My mom thinks it's not right to let families suffer like that, especially when we have the means to help. I was also very close to Jake, so it's doubly bad optics if I don't contribute even a little. My sisters and some of my cousins already pitched in, but it's not enough. My uncle cannot take out a loan to pay because he already took one out the last time Jake got arrested. He's still paying that loan off. Witba if I follow through by not pitching in. Stories number 17. Revenge on my sister who had been drip feeding my mum. I was only after her money. My sister is nearly 40, an alcoholic and coke head, but the life and soul of the party. She still lives at home and mum pays for everything for her. When my son was born my mum worked in the children's clothes were at a department store. For my birthday I got nothing as I'm too old, yet my sister would have parties, presents and anything she wanted. I found out she'd been telling my mum I only wanted her money, and this has been happening over 10 years. I own house, I don't want anything from her. My brother also lives at home and he got some stuff but not nothing like my sister. We went on holiday, I had to pay for myself and my mum paid for my sister. My sister stole my mum's jewelry, computer, sat nav etc. to pay for drugs, she OD'd and yet she's still the golden child. About 4 years ago we went NC as my son asked why do we bother. Got me thinking and yup, life is so much better. I still have friends there and my sister can't keep a job, I know she rarely pays rent, so we hatched a plan. At 40 she'd never been arrested as my mum paid all her debts off, so a friend waited till payday, she saw her and her dealer my sister bought a load of coke. It just so happened she got stopped by the police who was in the area. She had 6 grams on her. She was arrested and charged with possession. My mum refused to bail her out till the following day. At the age of 40 she has a curfew, if she doesn't pay rent she has to move out, if she has a tantrum, she has to move out. Finally, she's got her comeuppance and no, I'm still not speaking to them but I feel warm and fuzzy inside. Stories number 18. Aita for snapping at my tutor because I was late to work. I, 15M, attend a private school on scholarship and have really struggled with a lot of things throughout my time there, socially and academically, as it's been difficult to balance keeping my GPA above the threshold and working to help my sister pay rent. I've always struggled with math, and ever since I've started working more hours, my grades been getting worse and I'm scared to lose my scholarship. I talked to my math teacher and learning specialist about this, and since I can't afford a tutor, they've decided it was a good idea to pair me up with another student in my class, 15M. For simplicity, we'll call him Alan, fake name. Now, a couple of things you should know about me. Firstly, I'd say I'm quite good at English/related subjects, when I'm not rambling on Reddit, and second, I'm not exactly fond of Alan. Despite that, it's been quite a beneficial partnership for us both, we tutor each other in different subjects. My grades have been improving, and we've even started to develop a sort of friendship. However, here's the situation, Alan was tutoring me after school, not the ideal time, but I needed help for a test I had the day after, and we lost track of time. When I saw the time, I realized I was about to be late for work and stood up to leave. I was packing up quickly, so Alan asked why I was in such a rush, and I kind of froze. One thing about this school is that there aren't many scholarship kids like myself, and the students are pretty ruthless towards them. I've seen a lot of students get bullied because of it, so I've tried to keep it hidden from anyone. Here's where I might be the asshole, though, I refused to give him an explanation and tried to run out, but he caught me by the wrist and asked again. At this point, I was pretty mad and told him to mind his own business. He still wouldn't let me go and said that he was just worried about me, but I was really running late, so I snapped at him that it was none of his business to stop being worried because I was doing great and to leave me alone. I know he was just worried, but I just really needed to go and forgot about it until the next day. The next day, I came to school, and one of our mutual friends, I'll call her Shelly, 14F, came up to me and asked what the hell was wrong with me and called me an asshole for yelling at Alan when he just wanted to help. In my eyes, I was just trying to get where I was going, and he was being pushy. We're not very close friends, but now I'm not too sure. Aita. Stories number 19. Aita for refusing to cut my father, stepdad, out of my life when my mother came to see me in the hospital. I 30 female had a very rough upbringing as a child. My mother was 16 when she had me, my birth father isn't in my life and disowned me from birth. She took care of me most of my life with the help of my grandmother and her various boyfriends over the years. Over the years though my mother was abusive to me and accused me many times of the reason her boyfriends never worked out. Fast forward a few years she met my now father 51M who has been there for me through thick and thin and protected me from my mother's abuse. Before I was 16 he was the one to keep the peace when my mother had her episodes. I swear she's bipolar and ADHD but refuses to talk to someone about this, and when my younger brother and sister were born he was the one to make sure I never felt unwanted. Fast forward to when I turned 16 a week later my mother kicked me out and cut contact with me to limited. Stating it was because he didn't want me part of the family anymore. But this was her version as he continued to support me and offered financial aid when I needed it for school. After several years they broke up, and filed for separation. But I told them both I wouldn't take sides and that I would be there for my brother and sister who weren't even teenagers yet. This upset my mother and her side of the family that they completely cut me out of the family for 12 years. Fast forward again to now, this past year of 2023 to 2024 I have been diagnosed with a rare blood clotting disorder that causes me to clot easily in my body with minimal injuries. It got worse as 2024 came around and I was hospitalized for many months because I was diagnosed with 8 clots on my lungs. My other half and his family were amazing and supportive throughout this scary time of my life. I decided to try and reach out to my grandmother and my mother again. At first they seemed hesitant because they knew I was still in contact with my father, but they got over it and came to see me and spend time with me in the hospital. That is till one day my mother said that if I was still in contact with my father that she would cut me off for good and never speak with me again. At the time it was stressful and I needed my family's support and wanted them there, so I cut contact with him for a few months. Which I know now wasn't right of me. I had to be transferred to another hospital and had to have a 10-hour surgery to remove the clots from my lungs as I was now in heart failure. After the surgery I stayed in the hospital for about 2 weeks until I was discharged. When I called my mother to let her know I was arranging for a way home when she piped up and said she would come get me. Which was no small feat as she lived 3 to 4 hours away from the major hospital I was staying in. At the time she seemed okay with coming and getting me, but after she arrived I told her the plans my other half and his parents had offered to let me stay with them as they have an elevator and I live in a 3-story apartment building with no elevator, and at the time I was very weak on my legs. She became very upset and said I was coping out and being a weak because I wouldn't attempted the 3 flights of stairs after major open chest surgery. I explained that even the physiotherapist in the hospital and doctors said it was a good idea till I was feeling strong enough to attempt the steps. She because physically upset and demanded I get dressed and ready to go. The whole car ride home was uncomfortable and I could see she texted my grandmother demanding she take me the rest of the way home after they met so she didn't have to see my other half and his parents. For context, I did tell her my other half and his dad offered to meet halfway for her and take me the rest of the way home, but she refused and said she didn't mind. Once I finally was home I hoped that my mother and I could rebuild our relationship, but she started a pity party over text with me one night, and since she'd been strained with her texted. I have since reached back out to my father and we are now back to speaking after I explained the situation and made my point that I wanted them both in my life, but I refuse to be a spy for either of them. Which he fully respects and just wants to make sure I'm okay and I'm doing what's best for my health. My sister is the only one besides myself who is in contact with my father and mother. Since I got in contact with my father again, my mother has gone back to her strained little to no texts contact with me or generally not caring at all. I recently went back to the hospital again for a complication with my medications and her side of the family didn't reach out to me or seem like they cared. My father's side, though, even if I'm not blood, has continued to love and cherish me like one of their own. I would love some advice on what I should do regarding all this, as my mother seems to control the narrative around her side of the family. Should I cut off my father and his side and risk losing his love and my brother, or should I just let it go and not worry about all this? Thank you for the advice ahead of time. Stories number 20. My boyfriend, 22M, tried to buy me, 21F, a boob job for my birthday. My boyfriend comes from a wealthy family. My family is upper middle class, but not crazy wealthy. Not wealthy enough for throwing thousands of dollars at your significant other for a completely elective surgery. This all started because a couple months ago I had sepsis. I had a UTI that I never got around to getting a prescription for because I was so busy with college, work, and club sports that I barely even found time to eat. I was peeing blood and in severe pain by the time I was hospitalized. I've lost weight due to the hospitalization, 30 pounds, and my BF has made remarks asking when I'll get my curves back. I know he likes bigger girls, whatever, but I'm taking my time getting my strength back and just eating whole foods. The weight will come if it comes, and honestly I'm fine with my body right now because I'm at a healthy weight. He doesn't put too much effort into his appearance, so I never react well to him trying to police mine. My birthday was Wednesday, and after we went out to dinner with friends and we were alone, he gave me a little business card and said it was my gift. I was confused, and so I looked closer and it was a cosmetic surgeon's card with an appointment date on it. I asked what it was and he said he wanted me to feel more like myself, so he scheduled a consultation with a surgeon for a breast augmentation. To his credit, since I've been feeling so crappy and I've been wanting to feel a little cuter, I've been doing little things like getting my nails and hair done just to boost my confidence a little bit. However, I do not want a boob job and have never said I wanted a boob job. I just got out of the fucking hospital after a month. I do not want to go near any surgeons or hospitals anytime soon unless it's life or death. We don't live together, so I asked him to leave. I told him I'd speak to him when I was ready. He's been blowing up my phone and begging me to call him or to just acknowledge him, but I have no idea what to say yet. Part of me wants to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he just wanted to help my confidence, but part of me isn't sure. I'm just hurt. Stories number 21. Aita for not helping my brother move. Backstory for context. About a year ago, I went overseas for 9 months. My brother asked to borrow my keyboard while I would be gone since I wouldn't be using it. I packed it up for him and dropped it off at his house. After returning home a little over a month ago, I asked him to bring it back to me. Over the next month, I asked over 5 times, and the responses varied from, "I can't today, next time I come over," and no response at all. He even came over multiple times in that period, but just didn't bring the piano with him. I don't have a car, so I would have to borrow one to go get it myself. After enough frustration, I finally borrowed my mom's car, and went over there with her to go get it. He hadn't even packed it up into the box yet. He also acted like he was doing me a favor by giving the piano back to me. After getting it back, I told him not to ask me for a favor until he apologized. Cut to today, he asks me to help him move some furniture. I told him I didn't want to, and when he pushed on it, I told him the reason is because of the incident with the piano. He said, "Fine, but if you're not going to help me, then don't expect me to help you in the future," and called me some colorful names. I pointed out the irony of his statement in regard to the piano, and then my mom says I'm being a dick and holding a grudge. They say, "It's just a piano, get over it," but my issue is with the disrespect, not the piano. I told him I'd help with his next favor if he apologized, but he still refuses to. So, Aita. Stories number 22. What girl needs to hear this, but if you're in your early 20s, you should be dumping a lot more guys. I'm 21F, and if there's one thing I've learned in my few years of dating, it's this: stop settling for less than you deserve. I can't tell you how many times I've scrolled through this app and seen posts from kind-hearted, amazing young women sticking it out in relationships where they're being treated horribly. Whether it's emotional abuse, manipulation, a complete lack of effort, or just plain disrespect, too many of us are tolerating things we shouldn't. Let me be real for a second, especially in your early 20s, it's okay to leave. It's okay to dump someone. In fact, it's more than okay, it's healthy. At our age, we shouldn't be spending our prime years stuck in toxic, draining, or one-sided relationships. If he's selfish in bed, doesn't listen, refuses to communicate, or outright disrespects you, he knows what he's doing. He heard you the first 10, 20, or 30 times you told him what bothers you or what needs to change. And if he's not changing, that's not an accident. It's not because he doesn't know how, or needs more time. It's because he doesn't care enough to change. We need to stop coddling guys who refuse to grow up. Stop making excuses for their behavior. Stop tolerating the bare minimum or less, just because you love them or because you think they'll change someday. The hard truth is that if he's showing you his true colors now, believe him. I know it's easier said than done. I know how scary it can be to walk away from someone you've invested time and energy into. Maybe he's been your first love, or maybe you're scared of being alone. Trust me, I've been there too. But here's what I've realized: staying in a bad relationship out of fear or habit isn't love, it's settling. And let me tell you something else: men aren't afraid to dump us. They're not sitting around wondering if they're being too harsh or overreacting. If they're unhappy, they'll leave without a second thought. So why are we out here bending over backward, tolerating their disrespect, and giving them 20 chances to fix their behavior? Here's the truth: we should be dumping more men than they dump us. Period. If he's toxic, if he's not meeting your needs, if he's making you feel less than you are, let him go. It doesn't matter how much you love him. It doesn't matter how much you've invested in the relationship. And it definitely doesn't matter how many apologies, excuses, or empty promises he gives you. At the end of the day, you are worth so much more than that. You deserve someone who loves and respects you, someone who listens and actually puts in the effort. And if that's not the guy you're with right now, that's okay. There are so many people out there who will treat you right, but you'll never find them if you're stuck wasting your time on someone who doesn't. So, to all my fellow young women, be brave. Be honest with yourself. And if he's not treating you like the queen you are, don't hesitate to walk away. Your future self will thank you for it. Dump him, and don't look back. Stories number 23. The moment I walked away, it started with a feeling, a quiet unease I couldn't shake. He'd been distant lately, his phone always turned away, his excuses piling up like a stack of unanswered questions. I wanted to trust him, I told myself I was overthinking. But then I saw his location. The little dot led me to a cafe across town. Through the window, I saw him leaning in close to a woman I didn't recognize, smiling in a way that made my stomach twist. I tried to rationalize it, tried to believe it was innocent, but deep down, I knew. Over the next few days, I watched his location more closely. The pattern became undeniable: different places, different women, but the same lies when he came home to me. I didn't want it to be true, but the evidence was right there, staring back at me. When I finally confronted him, he tried to deny it, to charm his way out of it like he always did. But I laid it all out, the locations, the times, the things I'd seen. And when I asked him how many, the silence was answer enough. He said he never meant to hurt me, but his words felt hollow. I told him the truth, it wasn't about what he meant, it was about what he did. That night, I packed my things and left. It hurt, but staying would have hurt even more. Walking away, I realized I wasn't just leaving him, I was leaving behind the lies, the betrayal, and the weight of loving someone who couldn't love me the way I deserved. And as painful as it was, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, free. Stories number 24. I'd love to be a parent, if I could be a dad or if my partner was a woman as well. Long post ahead, so if you do read it, thank you so much. I have never been a 100% positive about kids until I met my current boyfriend. But being positive about kids didn't last long. As I grow up and see more and more of the world, I see more and more women being unhappy in marriages, especially if they also have children. I don't really see the same phenomenon in men. I envy how the world lets them maintain the life they have enjoyed before, how their social circles and day-to-day activities remain almost the same, and that they cannot see how privileged they are to have this. I envy that their "I'm doing everything around the house" consists of going to their job, just like they did before children, washing the dishes once in a while and playtime with the children when they feel like doing it. I envy that their body doesn't have to go through changes that society deems unwanted, and I envy they don't have to ruin their career for kids. I envy the view they have on what bringing up a child is. In all the marriages I've seen in my life, women do the majority of the hard lifting around the house, and somehow men are still irritated by women. If I hear the words wife or mother, it doesn't have a positive ring to it anymore, no matter where I hear it. I want to live together with someone and be in love with them for the rest of my life, but I don't want to be wife. I want to have children, but I don't want to be mom. We are always nagging, not doing shit, even though we are forced into positions of not being able to work, even though tasks with children and household chores are work as well, they are NPT viewed that way. I hate how men think we are privileged to stay at home, but they would never do that if they have the opportunity. I hate how lowly regular people talk of their wife and daughter-in-laws and moms. I hate how women almost always end up the default parent, and I hate how most men don't even know what the meaning of a default parent is. I hate how children often become a priority in men's life in a way that doesn't allow their wives to be appreciated in the same light anymore. They don't even necessarily want children, they want a little me who they can sometimes play sports with. I don't know how to explain this better, but all the women I know seem to understand that you need to put your children and your spouse as a priority at the same time. Because what's best for children is seeing that everyone is appreciated in the household, and everyone's needs are being met. And fuck this perspective too. Men should just appreciate and cherish their wives because they love them, and it's only natural then, not because it's best for the children. It's a fucked up view, I know, but I think I would love to be a parent if I was a dad, or maybe if I was parenting with another woman. But as it is now, I see it as a nightmare. Sorry for my English as well, but I just had to share my frustrations. I don't know what to do with my boyfriend either. I love him, but it's so hard to bring up things like this without him feeling like I'm overthinking things or painting him as the enemy. My post is very generalizing, I know, I'm only talking about the men around me in my life and what I see here on this sub. Stories number 25. I'm being threatened to refer a potential intern, should I tell HR? I graduated college last year, and since announcing my job on LinkedIn, a lot of students from my school has been contacting me for a coffee chat. One student in particular was from a club I was previously the co-president of, so I felt more comfortable. She asked me what I disliked about my job, company, and what I thought could be improved. So, I straight up told her the truth. I warned her that our department is messy, there is a lot of politics in management, too much drama between our VP and CEO, they're married, and it comes down onto the people working with the VP, and that genuinely, I don't think this would be a good company for her to work in. Truthfully, I was looking out for her. I shouldn't have ranted, but she reminded me a lot of myself at college, and I wouldn't want her to work here or even with my team. The internship was specifically for my team, I know, because she sent over the job posting and it's basically what we do, and our VP was talking about wanting an intern. Then, at the end of the call, she asked me for a referral. I told her no. I never worked with her professionally before, so I wouldn't feel comfortable vouching for her, and that I didn't want to lie or fluff it up. She was fine with it. We ended the call. Today, I received an anonymous email from someone claiming they have a recording of me complaining about my job, my department, VP/CEO, and that someone was going to put my name down for referral and I should let it through. Obviously, it's her. I reached out to her to tell her I wouldn't be scared into referring, but she ignored me. Then, I receive a notification from HR that I had a referral request to confirm. The video is also really incriminating. It was a screen recording of our conversation on Zoom, my name and face was in it, but obviously, only cropped up to my face and not the girl. Now, should I tell HR what happened? But that would also reveal her recording. I'm very nervous because they attached my VP's email and HR's email in the anonymous email, so now I'm cornered. What should I do? Update: wow, thank you for the overwhelming support and comments. I was freaking out yesterday, super anxious, and nervous about my next moves. I'm an overthinker, so that's why I kept on asking more questions. I wasn't trying to dodge advice, I just wanted to get all my ducks in order. I filed a police report and well, it went nowhere. I went to my local police office, I live in NYC, and they said it wasn't sufficient evidence to call it blackmail because technically she wasn't the one emailing me, just because her email came in at the same time, even though she was the only one in the meeting besides me. But they will make a note of my report and told me to come back if anything else happens. It's honestly so frustrating, and what more I do about the police. I also went and got a free lawyer consultation, I can't afford one right now, and the best they can do is send a warning letter. So, I emailed the university. I emailed both the university dean of students, her department head, and reached out to my club. No response from anything yet, but my club did promise to kick her out, only, after I tell them exactly when because I don't want her to know I'm building a case against her. I'll try to keep you guys updated. Fingers crossed.